So thank you very much for the technical help. So as I was saying, we run all these different institutions, one in England, one in Israel, and the third one had a very big impact. This new this organization we run is called Yeshivat Torah. Now, what's a Yeshivat Torah? So if you don't mind, I'm just going to take off my hat, feel more comfortable. Yeshivat Torah is a program for the advanced studies of Kabbalah. Okay, we have individuals who've been learning with us for many, many years, but we take the study of Kabbalah very seriously, and it is a program made for people who are interested in learning and studying the words of the Arizal. The Arizal was known to be the foremost expert in Kabbalah. He has the most expansive literature that we have on record for Kabbalah. And we have studied his works, and we have actually written many books about Kabbalah according to his writings. Okay? We have some copies of those with us. Anybody wants to look at them, we can show them to you afterwards. Okay? And due to those studies, it really inspired me to write a book in English. Because a lot of people were asking me this, I'm writing a lot in Hebrew, but what about English? So I've written a book, and the title of the book is called The Ultimate Connection with God. The Ultimate Connection with God. Now, and that's what I'll be speaking to you about tonight. It's about the ultimate connection with God. Now, first of all, where did I get this title, The Ultimate Connection with God? It's really a pasuk, it's a verse in the Torah. And what is this verse in the Torah? The verse in Torah, it says in the Torah, Ledovkobo. Ledovkobo. What does that mean? To attach yourself to Hashem. Now that's very interesting. You know, we know there's a lot of different laws out there. For example, if you build a roof on the house, there's a law that says you have to build a fence around the roof, that way nobody should fall off. There's a law that says on Rosh Hashanah, on Yom Kippur, you have to blow the shofar. There's a law that says practically when it comes to the Pesach time, you have to eat matzah, not bread. We can understand that. It's very, very practical for us. But what is this mitzvah called Ledovkobo? Because we know there's 613 lessons, or commandments, I should say. Now, what is this commandment of being connected to Hashem? And what's more particular about this mitzvah, one of the 613 mitzvahs, the Dovkabah, is that it's mentioned more times than any other commandment in the Torah, which is fascinating. It's very exceptional that we find that a mitzvah is mentioned more than once. Twice, it's even less seen, very rare. This mitzvah is mentioned 9 times. Over and over again in the Torah and Tanakh, it's mentioned Ledovkabah. Attach yourself to Hashem. Attach yourself. It's not only a nice thing to do, it's a commandment. That's strange. I mean, you know, tell me what to do. Tell me how to do, but how do I connect to something which is completely spiritual? How do I do that? No instructions. Just go and do it. And if you do it, you are doing nothing less than being Mekayim and for example, eating matzah on Pesach. Fasting on Yom Kippur is not more important than connecting to Hashem. It's on the same level. It's a mitzvah min Torah. Now, how do we understand this? So I'll tell you, the rabbis have discussed this at length. Okay? And the Gemara Ksuvas. The Gemara Ksuvas asks a very important question. It says, how can we connect to Hashem? It says, Lidovkabah, connect. How? What's the Gemara asking? It says, if Hashem, and because it's brought down by the prophets that Hashem is compared to fire. Okay? Now, how can we be connected to fire? The Gemara asks this question. If you're connected to fire, you're going to be burnt up. Very practical question, very intelligent question. If you're saying there's a mitzvah to connect to Hashem and Hashem is fire, how are you supposed to connect to fire? Very practical question, very understandable. So the Gemara says, you know what? Interesting answer. It says, you know what? No, you're not connecting directly to Hashem, but rather you're connecting to Torah scholars. How does that connect you to Hashem? Because the Torah scholar learns Torah, which was given from Hashem, and by connecting to the Torah scholars who are connected to the words of the Torah, you are there indirectly connected to Hashem. Okay, it's an answer given. But what I want to tell you is that I wasn't very happy with that answer. That was a bit indirect. And I looked around and I found a lot of Kabbalists speak about this. And they say, we're not going to accept that as a primary answer. That is definitely true. What the Gemara is telling us, you can connect to Hashem through great, sages. But what about connecting to Hashem on an individual basis? Without anybody else between us, me and Hashem. Is that possible? The Kabbalists say, yes, it is possible. Okay? Because we have a rule in the Torah that says, Ein mikre yotze midi pshuto. That when the Torah says something, it means it literally. Thank you. The Torah means it literally. If the Torah tells us to do it, it means it has to be done in this way. Okay? You can do it in other ways as well. For example, this particular mitzvah, attach yourself to other people which are attached to Hashem. But the primary and the best way of doing it is to attach yourself to Hashem. Okay, directly. Okay? And that's what we're going to speak about tonight. And that's what the book's about. How do we, more technical problems. How do we actually connect to Hashem? Okay. Okay? Is everybody with me so far?
Yes.
Everybody wants to know how to connect to Hashem? Okay. So now, how are we going to learn how to connect to Hashem? No better person to tell us how to connect to Hashem is that finding people that are already connected to Hashem. They've gone through this path. And who are these? These are the great men which we call the Nevi'im, the prophets themselves. The prophets have taught us how to connect to Hashem. Now, the thing is, their words are very cryptic. I'm going to, warn you that these words are very cryptic and hard to understand. But with the teachings of the Arizal, as I mentioned beforehand, they explain and really expand this concept. So now I'm going to read you a passage from two great prophets that we have that teach us the way how to connect to Hashem. The first prophet is called Eliyahu Navi. I think everybody's heard of him, very famous character in the Gemara, in the Midrashim, Eliyahu Navi. And also we're going to speak about another famous prophet called Yechezkel. Yechezkel had a famous prophecy connecting to Hashem directly as he elevated himself, he meditated, he elevated himself, and he went through what's called the Merkava, the secret passageways to Hashem, and there are all the secrets how to connect to Hashem. Okay? So we're going to compare these two prophets together and see if we can apply that to our own life to connect to Hashem. Okay? So let me read an English version. I'm not going to read the Hebrew version, but the English version, which I've translated, and let's see the comparison between this and see what we can learn from here. Okay. Take some of your water. Okay, so the pasuk says as follows: I looked and behold. This is in Yechezkel. And what did Yechezkel behold? He beheld what? A strong wind. Yechezkel noticed a strong wind coming from the north. Number 2, then he appeared a great cloud. And then, thirdly, a flashing fire. Listen to his description as he's going through his prophecy and connecting it. Again, a strong wind coming from the north, a great cloud, and then finally, a flashing fire. And then it continues, and then he appeared, a glow around it. And from the midst, the vision of the chashmal in the middle of the fire. Okay? We're not going to go into right now the chashmal, that's a whole subject on itself. But those are the steps we see. A stormy wind, a great cloud, and then a flashing fire. Remember this. Now, let's compare this to Eliyahu Navi's prophecy. And he said, that means there was an entity that was talking to Eliyahu Navi. And he said to him, to Eliyahu, go out and stand on the mountain in front of Hashem. And behold, Hashem passed by, and a great stormy wind. Also the same expression. There was a stormy wind that tore the mountains. And then Hashem was not in the wind. But Hashem was not in the wind. So there was a stormy wind that tore the mountain, but Hashem was not in the wind. After the wind, a loud noise, but Hashem was not in the loud noise. And then after the loud noise, a fire passed, but Hashem was not in the fire. When the fire passed, there was a still voice. There was a still voice. Okay? So we see some comparisons here, because we find from Eliyahu Navi that he speaks about this strong wind. He speaks about the loud noise, and in the case of Yechezkel, it was called the great cloud. And then finally talks about the fire, also an expression of fire. What does this all mean? And then finally, the still voice. So, in summary, the prophets, when they meditated and they wanted to elevate themselves, they had to go through these three different levels the Kabbalists explained to us. And this is drawn from a very ancient text called the Zohar. There it shows us that these three steps of the stormy wind, the great cloud, which is, what's a cloud? When you're in a cloud, everything is cloudy. You can't really see your way. Or loud noises, as in the case of Eliyahu Navi, a loud noise sometimes becomes so loud it's not audible. You can't make any sense out of a loud noise. So many noises all at once doesn't make any sense. That's like the cloudy sky. And then finally, the third step is the fire, the burning sensation. The burning fire burns. There's a very strong sensation that comes with fire. Okay? So first this strong wind. Then the great clouds of this inaudible noises. And then the fire. And then finally, the breaking through all that. The glow. Or the still voice. The quietude that comes at the end of it. So the Zohar explains that when a person wants to attach to Hashem, as these great prophets, they will go through these three difficult stages of trying to connect to Hashem. And then finally there will be a breakage and then connecting to Hashem. Now let me make this more understandable to us. Okay? So let's talk about the first stage, the stormy wind. Okay? Again, we're explaining a pasuk in the Torah called the Dov Kubo, how to connect to Hashem. This is the way the Nevi'im, the prophets, have taught us. So the first thing is stormy. What is a stormy wind in our language? What does this mean? We can take this in a physical sense. There was a very strong wind, but rather we're talking about spiritual levels, says the Zohar. That in your mind, there's sometimes we go through stormy times. We go into times where we're not thinking properly. Okay, this is what we call the compulsive thinker. When you have a lot of ideas in your mind, it's hard to think straight. And when you're not thinking straight, things are not making sense. Now, we have to understand about this idea of the stormy wind, the compulsive thinker that storms up things in our minds. Sometimes we get into a frenzy. Sometimes we get into situations where we're not thinking straight. Okay? That's the stage of the compulsive thinkers. What do we think about? We think a lot about the future. How the future can be, how we're projecting ourselves in the future. We think about the past, about all the things that happened to us in the past. But the present we never really think about. The present is really only an end to itself. But we don't really think about the present. We're always so busy about the future and about the past. The future and the past. We don't live in the moment at all. Because our thoughts are very wild thoughts. If you ever try to hold on to a thought, it's a scatter. We really are scattered brains because we have so many things on our mind, especially when our society moves so quickly. We have a lot of things on our mind, okay? That brings us sometimes non-clarity. We're not so clear in life because we have no control over our thoughts. We have not only neutral thoughts that come into our mind about thinking about all and everything, we also have unfortunately, some negative thoughts that come into our mind. And now these negative thoughts are more problematic because these negative thoughts can have actual physical properties on a person. You know, there's a very interesting experiment that was a famous experiment. I actually saw it once in a metro. And I was sitting there in the metro and I saw a sort of a sign over there, talked about somebody called Dr. Moto. Okay, you probably heard about this. Dr. Moto was a Chinese scientist, and he did the following experiment. I don't know if you've heard about this. It's fascinating. What he did was he took a glass of water, okay, and he decided to freeze it. Okay, but what he did beforehand, he started talking to the water. And he started not only talking, he started yelling at the water and cursing the water. Okay? He put it in the freezer and let it to freeze. He took another glass of water and started talking softly to it. And talking nice words to it and saying how he loved the water and talking all these nice things about the water. And then put it in the freezer to freeze it. Okay? He took up both glasses of water, and what he did is that he took a slice of, he's a scientist, he took a slice of the crystals, crystallized, put under a magnifying glass. And he found that the glass of water, or this crystal water now, was all, the one he yelled at was all disjointed. It didn't have any pattern to it. But on the other hand, the glass of water, or the ice, which he spoke to nicely, actually had beautiful crystals. It had tremendous color to it. Shined like a diamond. And he did this experiment over and over, and he saw this pattern. And he noticed something fascinating. He's saying, if you talk to water, it will influence the water. If you talk negatively to the water, it will have negative impact on it. You can see the way it's disjointed, the way it doesn't look nice. People are made up out of 60% of water. You imagine what our words have effect on people. If you speak nicely to people, you know what that effect has on a subatomic level, on the person's molecular structure when you speak to a person? Making beautiful crystals. How you tell a person, I love you, and how you're my best friend, or give them encouragement, what it does to a person. Not only builds them up mentally, but also builds them up on a physical basis. And if you talk badly to a person, what's going to happen? You're going to crush them. All the molecular structure is going to be these crippling structures of these misshaped crystals that we saw, that we spoke about, that we saw in these experiments. Is that the power of speech? Okay? So it's not only the power of speech, it's your own thoughts. Your own thoughts can have a positive or negative effect on your body. Okay? Now, how do we get onto this subject? What are we talking about this for? What does that have to do with being a Navi and connecting to Hashem? Because, ladies and gentlemen, what I want to tell you over here is that the Nevi'im, the prophets, knew this. And you know what? To be a prophet, okay, there are natural prophets, but there were training programs for prophets. There were schools called the B'nai Nevi'im. Schools of prophets, of prophecy. Shmuel Navi had a school, other prophets had schools, which they would train people and individuals to become prophets. It's an amazing thing. And I'm convinced, I was never in this school, but I'm convinced this is the first lesson it taught me. The first lesson to be a prophet, and in our case, to be connected to Hashem, is controlling your thoughts. Because if you're not in control of your thoughts, you're not in control of yourself. And if you're not in control of yourself, you cannot be connected to Hashem. You follow me? The first portal and connection to Hashem is through the thought. If you feel and if you think that you're connected, you are connected to Hashem. But you can't get to that stage if you have a wild thoughts in your head, protecting yourself to probabilities that might happen in the future, basing yourself on the past experiences, and not living in the moment. It's not going to happen. Your life will be hectic. Your health will not be good. And on the flip side, a person that can control his thoughts will have a very happy life. Will live for the moment instead of living for probable futures that might never probably won't happen, won't materialize. And once a person is connected through his thoughts, he feels the bliss of connecting to Hashem. And that's the mitzvah, Lirdov Kabo. Okay? That's what we saw. That was a lesson of the Nevi'im. Because as soon as they try to connect into Hashem, what did they see? The stormy wind. It wasn't a physical stormy wind. It could have been. But they were more making reference to storms in their heads. What's happening inside the mind when they try to settle the mind and try to connect to Hashem. You have to first settle the mind. That is the first stage of getting connected to Hashem. Now, I want to run a little experiment with everybody here in the room. Is everybody up for it? A little experiment? Yeah, go ahead. That's it, only one person? Yeah, go ahead. You in? You're in? Sort of? No, it's not scary. It's not scary at all. Okay. So what we're going to do now, we're going to look at a little experiment over here. Okay? What I want you to do, just for 10 seconds, I won't make this crucial for you, but I'm going to time this here, and for 10 seconds, I just want you to stop thinking. Okay, can you manage that? It's not a big feat, just to stop thinking. Are we ready? Are we good or not? Anybody there? You're there. You're still with me. Okay, so let's start. Okay, come on, guys. We can't have all night. Okay, 1, 2, 3, stop thinking. That means no thoughts. Okay, we're good. Now, just with the show of hands, okay, don't worry, the camera's not on you. How many people were able to say for 10 seconds that they didn't have one thought in the mind? No hands. Okay. So, everybody understands what I'm talking about here. You know, it's really simple, the idea of controlling your thoughts. I didn't say it's easy. It's simple, but not easy. So that's why these schools were implemented, the B'nai Nevi'im, to train them. The first step was control your thoughts. Not an easy thing, but simple. Now, how does one do that? I'll tell you how. One simple way of doing this is to be the watcher of your thoughts. Let that seep in a little bit. It's an interesting concept, to be the watcher of your thoughts. Because one of the major problems that we have is that we think we are our thoughts. We identify ourselves with our thoughts. As soon as a thought comes in, I have to act upon it because that's who I am. Okay? But the truth is not. We don't have to act on every single thought because we are not our thoughts. We are really a third party, really having the choice of whether to act upon those thoughts or not to act upon those thoughts. Does that make sense to anybody? Yeah. Yeah? Does that make sense to you? Yes. Okay. So really, what you want to do is that you want to we're going to do another little example. Okay? Being the watcher of your thoughts. Okay? 10 seconds. So imagine yourself as a third party, just sitting back, just taking a step backwards, and just watching with your eyes, with your mind's eye, just watching and being aware of the thoughts coming into your mind. Whatever it is. I got an appointment, I can't stay too long, this speech is boring. Whatever thought comes in, whatever the thought is, allow it to be, and be as observant, but not as you, but as a backseat person. Okay? Is that good? We're good? Yeah? Okay, everybody's going to participate? Let's go. 1, 2, 3, go. Just observe. No judgment. Just watch yourself thinking. And how does it feel? Okay, good. A little feedback, guys. How did that feel? Is that weird, or is that natural for you, or was that something new? Something new. How did you feel? Wasn't able to do it. Okay, that's honest. How about yourself? Difficult. Okay. You, madame? No, just behind you. How did you? You okay with it? Okay.
It's hard to separate the watching part. You have the thought, but then you're supposed to observe it. Or
Yeah. What naturally happens is that you get that thought, then you get involved in it. Yeah, but you have to understand, as you get involved with that thought, then you're caught. You won't be able to separate from that thought because you become the thought. Okay? So what you want to do is that before you get involved and give energy and let it grow the thought, you want to take a step backward and say, okay, I got a thought, I got a message, like an email. That's a good example. You get an email coming in, bing. So you have a choice now. Either open it and get involved and, oh, what did he write to me? Get really active with it and send it back. Or, not right now. Not right now. I acknowledge I got an email. I'm not going to open it. I'm not going to engage in the thought, but rather I'm going to allow it to be. See the difference? Are you with me? Okay. Like I told you, these are simple ideas, not easy, and that's why they need a training program to really allow their minds to think in alternative ways, because this is really the only way to be connected to Hashem. And the theory is very simple, because Hashem says, "Me and you, ani ve'ata, lo yochol lichyos biyachad." We can't both live. It's either you or me. If you want Hashem in your life, you have to make room for Him. If you're there with your big ego, I do this, I did that, you're always full of yourself, which is very natural for us because we have this constant flow of thoughts in our mind, busy and taking care of ourselves and so on and so forth. Then how do you expect Hashem to be there? You want to live with Hashem? Make space for Hashem. As soon as you make space, He's there. So that's the first rule that they're teaching us. That stormy wind. That stormy wind. So first thing is, be aware that there is a difference between being the watcher of the thoughts and the actual thoughts itself. Okay? Now, as a person progresses with this, okay, so a person feels himself that he's getting a hang of this and able to control thoughts, and they're not really running his life, but he's in control of the thoughts. A person will then start feeling a tremendous joy for life, a connectivity which is beyond expression, and in utopia. Less than that, I can't really minimize the importance of this and the feelings that come with this, because you're connected with something which is much greater than you, which is the source of life, the creation of life, and the power of all that is, which is Hashem, which is the Creator. That's how one becomes connected to Hashem. Now, you often hear about this word of meditation. Now, meditation is not something we really do speak about. Okay? Now, there's two types of meditation, to be very honest, right? There's the formal meditation, and there's informal meditation. Okay? Meditation is, we have this idea of a meditation that's sitting there within lotus position, and sitting for hours and hours and hours, not exactly knowing what we're supposed to be doing in those hours, okay? But what I'm talking about here is more informal meditation. I mean, we meditate, we have meditation in our tradition for thousands and thousands of years, and this is really based on our praying. Praying is a form of meditation. We pray 3 times a day. Really, it's not a mechanical thing that we're doing more or less today, but really it's to be a very powerful connector, time to connect with Hashem. Okay? That's when you have to release all materialism, release all thoughts, and just focus on the text, and that will automatically connect you to Hashem. That was meditation. But I'm talking something much more simpler here. I'm talking about your daily routines. Daily routines by going through life. Whether you're washing the dishes, whether you're sitting in traffic, whether you're looking after the children, whatever you're doing in life, you can either stress it out, sitting in traffic saying, oh, I can't believe this is happening to me, and I wonder what I can do about this, and get yourself all stressed out. Or rather, you can take the opportunity and saying, this situation is what it is. This situation is what it is. Because what's happening when a person gets stressed out about what's happening in his life, he's cluttering his mind again with more thoughts. And the more thoughts will get more thoughts, and everything will get entangled in his mind, and nothing's really achieved with that. But what a person wants to do, rather, is accept what's happening to him. And that's a huge word for us, and it's not easy. It's simple, but not easy. As soon as a person accepts what is, a person will feel elevated with that. It's a tremendous transformative tool. Accepting that. And as soon as that happens, it's a segula. It's a tremendous power to elevate and connecting. Okay? So again, that's another part of the equation that we're seeing. The stormy wind, the loud noises that the prophet saw, the clutter that we're speaking about. And then just when we're connected, the prophets are telling, they go through what's called the fire. The fire. They both, Yechezkel, the prophet, and also Eliyahu told us about this phenomenon called the fire. What is this fire? Again, the Zohar is telling these are 3 different levels that a person has to break through, really, to get to that final connection. And that fire is what? We know that in the brain you have 2 parts to the brain. You have the right brain and the left brain. You know that. What are these 2 brains? They are for 2 mechanical purposes. They do 2 different functions. The right brain, let's start with the left brain. Left brain is our logical brain. Okay? It leads our life. It gives structure to the life. It's a very methodical, logical processes that are produced from the left brain. Okay? The right brain is not that. The right brain is more of an artistic thinking. It's more of the nonsensical. Okay? More of a free aspect of ourselves. We have these 2 conflicting powers inside of us, which are located in our right and left brain. Because we know in Kabbalah, we have a musa called the Sfirot. And these are tremendous powers that Hashem uses in order to give us blessing. Okay? So as we are connecting to Hashem, these are coming through the right side, without getting too technical, coming through the right side, and they're coming through down to the left side. And the word for that is the right side is called Chokhmah, the left side is called Bina. Right? The right brain is called Chokhmah, the left brain is called Bina. Bina is translated by understanding. Right brain is translated by wisdom. Wisdom. What's the difference between wisdom and in understanding? Understanding, Rashi explains to us, is understanding something that you can break down, something that you have to be sort of a detective to break down and to understand thing within another thing. Okay, that's the understanding. To understand, you have to break it down. Wisdom is something you understand naturally, intuitively, is understanding. Now, in the Sefer Yetzirah explains to us 2 different concepts. One concept is called seeing One concept is called hearing. What's the difference? Because if I'm going to explain to you what's in this room, it's going to take me a long time to explain to you. Because when you got to hear it and you're not seeing it, I've said, there's books in the room, there's a table, there's people, there's chairs, and I can go on for hours and hours explaining and describing the room. That's the power of hearing. Okay? You have the power of seeing that you see everything in one go. If I show you a picture, the expression is worth 1,000 words. That's the power of Chokhmah. The power of Chokhmah encapsulates everything. It's a knowingness. The Bina is something that you have to work out. Okay? When you fuse both of them, you're going to get fire because they're working in two different ways. The protons and the neutrons will be firing up over there, discussing and deciding how we're going to investigate things. Are we going to use our logical brain to understand this, or we're going to use our intuitive faculties to understand this? Okay? So that's the fire. That's the conflict the person's going to feel. Once the person has broken through these two steps, through working with understanding the thoughts, with being the watcher of the thoughts and taking a step back, and then through this investigating to understand what's happening with himself, this connectivity, to understanding the feelings that the person's feeling, and deciding to work with the right brain as opposed to the left brain, that's the final stage. Once you can pass that stage of sort of negating your left brain and siding with your right brain, with your intuitive self, that's when you're going to burst through and see, as they described by the glow. They saw the glow. They heard the still voice. The quietude. You come to a space where there is no more thought. Where you come to a space. And where there's space, there's no vacuum. It has to be filled up with something. And when you make that space, that's when Hashem comes in. Because then you're out of the way. But you had to go through these steps to see the difficulties and to make that a reality in your life. And once that's a reality in your life, and you made that space, that's when you connected to Hashem. Okay? So I know this is a little bit abstract, because we're going to go very, very quickly. This is what my book's going to be all about. It is all about. So we can continue talking about the different processes and go more into depth. And there's different lessons. That's just lesson number 1. There's 7 steps, really, to go more into depth and to understand how to connect with Hashem. There's a very interesting, I'll just leave you with this thought, though. There's a very interesting book which is written by a great Kabbalist. His name is Rav Chaim Vital, called Sha'arei Kedusha, The Gates of Purity. Now, it's not only just the book. His whole thesis there is about how we can get Ruach HaKodesh, divine inspiration. Okay? That's interesting that he claims that he himself had a lot of dealings with people in his time. He only lived, say, 400 years ago. And in his time, he's quoting the Tana de Be'elio, that he says, I can personally vouch for that. I've seen children, I've seen women, I've seen non-Jews that have this ability to connect to Hashem on an evidential basis. They can prove to you that they're talking to Hashem. They can look at somebody and tell them all about them, even though they've never met that person. They can tell you about their grandfathers, about information that there's no possible way they could have known, if not for the power of Ruach HaKodesh. Where did they get this from? And he lists stages and steps how to get to this Ruach HaKodesh, okay, which I included in my book. Okay, so I'm not going to spoil it for you by telling you right now what are these stages, but if this is something you're interested in, maybe I'll suggest to you that you get the book and you have a read. So I'm going to stop in here. If I want to stop and give a few minutes for questions, if anybody has any questions, then I'm happy to.
Do you have the book here?
Unfortunately, we had some technical problems. We were going to give out free copies to everybody, but it didn't happen. So we just have to wait till we get the books out. So, yes, sir.
The text that you quoted, the Sharma Kedusha, was there a great controversy for that book, and it was suggested that it shouldn't be written, and once it was written, it was actually, a great pushback from that particular sefer?
Okay, that's a very good point. So it's true, there was some controversy about this book, Shari Kedusha, on how to attain Ruach HaKodesh, but the controversy was really on the last section of the book, because it has 4 sections, and there was no controversy about the first 3 sections. This is a book which is known and been read by millions of people. The last section, the publishers who published it first never published the last section of the book because of this controversy. And I'll explain to you, because in the last section it's very, very Kabbalistic based. Meaning you have the names of the angels there, the good angels, the bad angels, how to influence the natural tendencies of the world, and so on and so forth. These are very powerful things that really the publisher felt that it wasn't supposed to be left to what we call the Hamon Am, for everybody to see and to use these powers. So it was omitted. A lot of rabbis said, no, you should keep it as it was. And a lot of rabbis said, no, take it out. So the consensus was to take it out. That was the controversy. But I'm not talking about using angelic names to speak to angels, to speak to incarnate souls. I'm not talking about them. I'm just talking about a natural, intuitive sense. What the Chazal called Ruach HaKodesh, what we call intuitive gut feelings, to explore that. And by exploring that, a person will feel this euphoria and be connected to Hashem. Yeah.
You made a comment about if you think you thinking towards Hashem, you are thinking towards Hashem. Is something that should there more be into that than just type of thing?
Oh, sure, yeah, 100%. I mean, the goal of this is really to not only to think about Hashem, it's really to feel Hashem. Okay, and what's the advantage of feeling Hashem in your life? Well, I think it's quite obvious. Once you feel connected to Hashem, you feel connected to life, because Hashem is life. There's nothing but Hashem. And when a person feels connected to Hashem, it's hard to describe, but you get such an overwhelming feeling of joy, overwhelming feeling of belonging and security, that it's irreplaceable and undescribable. Because we're all seekers of life. We're all trying to find that security. We're all trying to find that happiness, and we fill it up with a lot of empty things in our life. The material lives, we try to get another car, we try to change houses, we try to change husbands, wives, whatever it is, but we're just trying to find that extra happiness in our life. When a person should know that happiness is not outside of you, but really inside of you and in your hands. Your destiny can be changed by that simple switch in the mind and connecting to Hashem, and all the happiness is there. And then, that's when the magic of life happens. That's what it's about. So it's really not just the fact of just thinking of Hashem and just being so-called connected to Hashem, but really the inspiration that we're looking for. Once you're connected to Hashem and changing your life, that's what we're searching. That's what we're looking for. Okay? And then there are other levels, obviously. The other level is getting information from Hashem. Okay? Meaning what we call the intuitive self. We hear a lot of people calling about this gut feeling, you know what I mean? Business people do it all the time. They have these business decisions to make. They don't know what to do. So what do you hear them saying? My gut feeling is to go with this and not with that. What is that? Because believe it or not, you don't have to be religious for this. You really just have to be a sense of feeling, of something which is bigger than you. feeling your soul, which we didn't really touch upon here, but the soul connection. Everybody has a soul. Everything has a soul. Even a rock has a soul. Here the Kabbalist explained to us. So when you're feeling that connection to the soul, you are automatically connected. But you have to get there. You have to break the walls. That's a stormy wind. That's the cloud. That's the fire. You have to break through that. That's the thoughts that we've been talking about. And other elements.
That you can do this all day long, or that you have to have certain times during the day that you can connect?
There's no times for this. Okay? Now, to be connected 24 hours a day is a very difficult thing to do. Okay? So, that's really takes a lot of training. Like anything. If you want to be anything, you want to lose weight, you got to train for it. You want to become a bodybuilder, you got to train for it. You want better health, you got to train for it. You want to quit smoking, you got to train. You want to be connected to Hashem, you got to train for it. Like I said, it's simple, but it's not easy.
It's all a training lesson.
Excuse me?
He said it's all a training lesson.
It's all a training lessons. And that's what we're here for. It's not going to happen overnight, but that is the mitzvah of Lidov Kabo. Okay? That is, as we say, Pshuto Kamashmo, this is really what the Torah wants us to do. And that's why it's mentioned so many times in the Torah, be connected to me, be connected to me, 9 times emphasizing that you cannot do a bigger mitzvah than this, but to be connected to Hashem. I want to thank you for coming.
Is it okay
It was a pleasure.
actually sing?
Excuse me?
Can you do a Kaddish sing?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, but you need a minute. Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you so much.
Good. Enjoyed it. Informative.
I don't know if that's what you meant. No, there are a bunch of people out there. There are a bunch of people out there. The guy that was supposed to take me now is not going to. He's not going to. Basically, it's because we were going to listen.
Are you speaking with Mirman
I'm not going to be long. You done? We have a can?
What was the topic?
Guys, fire, yeah? With you so far, Yeah, waiting for me, guys. Missing one. Right. ונתחנן עם קשי ורציתי לו שברוך הוא לזכות ישראל, ולפי חב"ד, ולשם תורה רבצון שנאמר. שני מעל, אני מכבד סימן זיבור בתורה וידי וקדל וקדש מנבא אני תואר עם מבואות וגאולת ישראל והרגלה בזמן גרים יבואו דוד הלוי תלה לשמן, קודשה ולכו, נעלה מכל בצל פחדה ונחמדה, ומעלה וינו אמן. על ישראל ורונה דרונה והכל תנזיר ואמן, כמובן תסכים אולי ותקדישתה, תנבא לאתה ואתה, לגרון, פרשיינה לחזר לגיים, מתקדם ושמיה וינו אמן. יש שם רבה משמיה, והיית סבא ושבועה מנחמה ושזובה רפואה, גאולה ושמחה וחבלה. רץ לנו לכל עמו ישראל וינו אמן. עוז שלום וינו ברחמה ושלום עלינו. כל עמו ישראל וידעו אמן. ושבו שבלכו בשם כל ישראל כיבה כאילו יתברר כחבי יעקב על שלום ותודיו סיבה כנראה וכבודו היינו אמנו ומעשי ידינו בורנו אדוני צבאות עמנו והסתכלנו ליחסיך אדוני תשמחנה הושיע מלך ידינו יוקרנו תתקדש, שמירה בה, אלמה לבלת שחוטה ובימורתה ואחמם קנה וקנה משנה, וחי כל וכל אל כל בית ישראל, ועבלה בזמן קרים יראו אמן. השם ירחוק לנו ויודעם ויאמן, ברח ושבת מפרק ומות ונסרת ודוד הלוי תדל, שווה לקודשה ולפה, נעלה מכל ברכת ומטה, למנם יעלמה ויראו אמן. אנחנו מתאמן ובארנו הושיע אמן. יוקרנו ברכו את רנורה ברכו את רנורה Allah יצבאות שמו ואתה אדוני אמרים ערבים ועל כבודו ברצון קיבלו אליהם משה ולישראל לחם ושירה בשמחה רבה וכולם כמוך מדהים אדוני כמוך זה יאמרו אלוהים ללבן כיבוד חזקנו עמדה אדוני גן ישראל השכיבנו אתה אדוני שומר את המועצת הברלן אמן תתקדש רבה למה דברה חירותי ומימונותי ועצמך מוקנה וקראים שניהם וחייכון ומכון בנו בית ישראל וגלה בזמן קריב אמן